Welcome to 4,000 Weeks, the weekly audio dispatch from 4kweeks.com. I am Spencer. It is week 33 of the year 2025. The first thing that I owe you is the setup to the dad joke, which I'm just remembering I did not copy to the top of my teleprompter today, and I'm trying to think if I can remember it, and I think I can't. And instead of just starting over, I'm just going to find it real quick and babble on to you guys, which is fine. People seem to like that when they're listening to shock jocks or, radio hosts. I actually don't understand how people can listen to some dude just chat all morning long while they're at work. Anyway, I got it. Where was King David's temple located? That is the setup to the dad joke of the week. Where was King David's temple located? Okay, it is week 33 of 2025, and I am now 2.5 weeks removed from shattering my right arm. And I can honestly say to you, sincerely, and with a full understanding of the cringe factor when I say it, I'm glad that it happened. It's time for you to walk over to your 4K Weeks poster and fill in another square. Are you done? Okay. Tracking the weeks. Gosh dang, I've been at it for, let's look at the poster. 1, 2, 3, 3.5 years now. I have been filling out each week the square Monday morning. Sometimes when I'm out of town, I have to fill in 2 squares, or 3 squares when I get back. But I'm pretty dang consistent about it. I do the same things pretty much every Monday morning, unless, of course, I've broken my arm, and then those things wait. It still motivates me to make sure I'm getting the most out of each week. I mean, that's horseshit. It reminds me more often than not that this is finite, which is the whole point of the tool, right? You can't, I don't know, like the last few days, I'm getting ready to talk all about fitness and nutrition and everything in this email. And like the last 3 days, my nutrition has been trash. It's an ebb and flow. Life is an accordion, right? Sometimes it's in, sometimes it's out, right? So I hope that for you, it's still useful. And if you're out of the habit, get back in the habit. Get back in the habit for the next 5 weeks and then see if you can make it stick with 95% consistency. Anyway, okay, you're done doing that. It is pretty easy for that sentence earlier, right? I'm glad that it happened, to be a saccharine platitude. And I want to be clear about it. It still sucks, right? My hand hurts right now. It's swollen. I don't like that feeling. And as the day I wake up with not much swelling in my arm because I sleep with it elevated. And then by the time it's evening, I'm just annoyed because it feels puffy and tight and I have less mobility in my elbow and stuff. So it sucks. I mean, it's not fun. I'm not like, everything will be great. Jesus, take the wheel. I'm not being Pollyanna. But I have learned so much about who I am, how who I am relates to and differs from who I thought I was, who I hoped I was. And I have been so much more in tune to how very vanishingly little is actually important, right? I'm a busy guy with a lot of interests and a lot of things on my to-do list, people who rely on me regularly to check in with them, to kind of push my agenda forward. And like, it was almost nothing for me to disappear for 2 weeks for the most part. There is so little that is actually important. And it was so worth it to learn those lessons. And, it was an expensive lesson, both in time and energy and treasure. But usually those lessons, the reminders of those lessons are much more costly than this one was. Basically I'm going to have to explain my arm every time I go through a metal detector forever. And that's about it. After we're going to get through 3 months of this, and it's going to be mostly a memory. So I don't know. I mean, maybe that makes me Pollyanna, or maybe it just makes me more enlightened than I used to be, that I am actually glad that it happened. Because I like where I am right now. I like what I know right now. And there's no way to go back and make it unhappen without losing things that I really enjoy having right now. Week 33 of the year 2017. Barack Obama tweeted, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion." He tweeted that in response to the violence in Charlottesville. And it's a good minute to remember that. I would imagine that most of you who listen to this podcast, if you're still listening, if this is your first time listening, who knows? We'll see. But if you've listened to this for a while, I would imagine that you respond to that with a duh. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion or her skin, background, or religion. It's kind of a no-brainer. I don't think almost anybody would disagree with that. The trouble is when we layer on all the other crap that we're holding on to, and when we forget that there's a lot of different ways to hate, and we're all guilty of it on some level all day long. We are all hating on people all day long, even the best of us. I'd like to consider myself a person who does not talk about people. I talk about people, right? And when I do it, I feel weak and small, but it feels delicious too, right? Because that's it's like you're tapping into the reptile brain social behavior. People like us do things like this kind of tribalism, and it's tasty for your brain. And so the elevated version of that is like that you are actually called to love all of the people in the world, even when they are screaming vileness in your face. That's the hard part. I don't know. It seems so simple to me. I've been saying this recently. There is one minority group, and only one minority group, that is deserved of my scorn. Every other minority group in the world deserves only my mercy and patience and peace. And the one minority group that does deserve my scorn is the top 1% of 1%, right? Billionaires, et cetera, et cetera. There are people who are ruining the world because of money. And there's actually, in the podcast this week, one of the ones I recommend, we'll get to it in a second, there's a really good explanation of why that may be. Why people would pursue money and as an end in itself, even if it means the destruction of everything that they actually need and love. Anyway, moving on from Barack Obama's tweet. Oh, Barack Obama was 2,923.57 weeks old, or 56.06 years. The quote of the week: by accepting yourself and being fully what you are, your presence can make others happy. And I mean, again, saccharine platitudes. That's just simple, like, duh. It's by Jane Robbins. By accepting yourself and being fully what you are, your presence can make others happy. This quote ends in kind of a mealy-mouthed way. You could even leave out the word happy. By accepting yourself and being fully what you are, your presence can make others. I struggle with this sometimes, being fully what you are, that portion of it. And I struggle with this because, as you may know, I mean, I'm sitting here on a podcast based on a newsletter where I tell people how they should live their lives, right? So I can be a little extra, as the kids say these days. I am full of earnestness, energy, opinions, and volume, and stubbornness, and a head-first attitude. And so that can be like, it's hard for people. It's hard for my wife sometimes. And in fact, when we were meeting with the physician's assistant for my arm checkup, we actually didn't even meet with the surgeon. We just met with the physician's assistant. It was kind of a big nothing burger. This is the 2-week appointment where they took the stitches out and stuff. It was my wife and I, because I couldn't drive yet, and the physician's assistant, and she was like, "Okay, do you have any questions?" And it was clear from, like, about a minute later, it was clear from the look on her face and her stance, where she was kind of like tilted back on her stool just a little bit, that she was a bit blown back just by the force of my energy and my questions and my okay, can I sprint? Okay, you need to check with the surgeon. Okay, well, how about electromuscular stimulation? Because I've heard that swelling is really bad for healing, and EMS is really good to bring down swelling early. And she's just kind of like, okay, buddy. Like, most people come in here still on pain medicine, so back it down a notch, right? And I am an empathetic enough person to see that, to notice that body language, to see the discomfort in people's faces when they are facing the full force of my energy, and not want to increase it, right? I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I mean, I don't, In some situations, I don't care. But for the most part, most people are great and wonderful and nice and just doing the best that they can. And I don't want to make those people uncomfortable. There's no reason for it. But the fact is that I am a force of nature. And while that can be very off-putting to some people, it is my superpower. Now, superpowers are not appropriate all the time, right? The Hulk is a very difficult person to go antiquing with, right? So it's a weird balance there. And I don't know what your superpower is, but I do know this, that diminishing it and hiding your light under a bushel basket isn't doing anybody any good. It's doing no one any good. It's not doing you any good, and it's not doing the world any good, because you are a specific individual. There will never, ever, 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 ever be another spirit, another soul, another being that has your very specific and wanted a quadrillion set of skills and attributes and predilections. And that universe needs the fullness of that. And things go off the rails when people deny and diminish and cover up their true selves. And so hiding your light under a bushel basket isn't doing anybody any good, even the people who don't particularly care for the color of your light. Just because the way you are is not someone's preferred person to be around, and so they want to move away from you, doesn't mean that the universe that person lives in doesn't still need you to be that color of light. So stop diminishing whatever your superpower is. And I'm trying to take this lesson. I'm trying to learn how to be my fully, most earnest self without being a jerk or annoying to people, but also understanding that some people are going to be annoyed, right? Some people just don't like it, and that's their deal. And if I try to force it down their throats, then that makes me a jerk. But if I am just being who I am and like acknowledging the fact, okay, you don't prefer this, that's fine. It's not for you. Let's move on. That's good for the universe. Okay, that's the quote. Let's see. We're moving on next. What I consumed this week. Oh, a couple of really, really good things. Okay, the first is, gosh dang, I don't even know who the author is of this book, because sometimes when I transcribe it into the teleprompter, I just leave the photo in there, and then so it does not bring like the author information and stuff. So I'm just going to find this real quick, because this book is amazing. And not my trainer, my physical therapist, who I meet with every month, he and I have great conversations. We're similar individuals. He's not a physical therapist in the way you've gone to a physical therapist. He is a guy who loves physical therapy. He loves how the body moves. He loves learning the newest things. He is always talking to me about a study that he just read. I think Steve Jobs, how do you say his name? Steve Jobs said this, that find A+ performers and hire them and pay them the extra. They're worth it. And it's true. Like, if you can afford it, finding people who just absolutely love the thing that you are hiring them to do is like, it's not a linear, it's not they're not 100% better than the person who is just kind of good at their job. They're a million times better than the person at their job. And so my physical therapist, the name of their practice is Restore Thrive. His name's Tim. He's amazing. And he recommended this book to me in like our first 10 minutes discussion about the world and being human and pushing ourselves and stuff. And anyway, it is called Stand Out of Our Light. It's by James Williams. And in the email, I link you to actually the PDF of the book, because the book is a result of this thing called the 9 Dots Prize. And I think it's Cambridge University that came up with it. The 9 Dots name relates to the 9-dot puzzle that kind of helps people get outside of their own head for thinking. And the subtitle of Stand Out of Our Light is Freedom and Resistance in the Attention Economy. And so this guy used to work at Google, I think, and he wrote an essay and submitted it to the 9 Dots Prize, and then they judged them totally blind. So they don't know if it's, the CEO of Google writing this essay, applying for the prize, or like an administrative assistant or something. And it's not just Google, it's everyone. And so then he won the 9 Dots Prize. And so because of that, he wrote the book, they published the book, but they also offer it as a free PDF. So in the email is a free PDF. And it is a spectacular discussion of where we are and where we're going and how to fight against all the negative aspects of the attention economy And if you are focused on doing creative or interesting work that is novel, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to call it creative, whatever, new work. If you're interested in making new things and having control of your own attentional focus, you should read this book. So Stand Out of Our Light, James Williams. The PDF is in the email. You should read it. A change is coming. And the only question is which direction. That is the true thing. Okay, next is the Diary of a CEO podcast. And there's only 2 in the email this week because both of them are the kind of thing where you need to consume some and stop and think about it for a while. So Diary of a CEO, I don't typically like this podcast, but he does have a lot of good guests on it because he is quickly becoming one of the most highly ranked podcasts in the world. What's his name? I can't remember his name. It's Diary of the CEO. Anyway, the title of the episode is Ex-Google exec Mo Gadot on AI. The next 15 years will be hell before we get to heaven. And so this is, again, a discussion about the forces in tech and the economy and our world that are pushing us in certain directions and what it means. And gosh dang it, the AI. I talk a lot about AI, but it's the most significant force moving things in our world. And you should listen to this podcast and it will blow your mind. And just the discussion about money and needing to make a return on your investment and that leading to wars is just the kind of granular thinking, the kind of if-then thinking that I don't think we come across every day and gives you a lot to consider. Okay, that is the world stuff. That's the big out there world stuff that I think is important. There's like 2 realms. It's funny, the what I'm consuming part of this podcast is always about the larger world for the most part. And then what I'm thinking about is almost always about our own personal lives, internal lives. And so this week is kind of a follow-on to last week. Last week I described how I broke my arm, showed you the x-ray, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I purposefully left out this part of the story because I wanted to say it. I wanted to do it here. So this is what it means. What is living is what I've been thinking about this week. What is actually living? I'm old enough that my parents are older. My in-laws are older. Well, my mom is older. My dad is not getting any older anymore. But that all of his lessons are still fresh in my mind. And so I'm thinking about aging a lot. 48 years old. Hopefully I'm only halfway there, but still I'm halfway there. And if you know what it's like to be 48, you know that it's significantly different than 38 from a durability and flexibility, et cetera, perspective than it's different than 38. It hurts more. You have to pay more attention to it. And so, last week I told you all about how I shattered my arm. So it would have been about three weeks ago. Yeah, I think it would have been three weeks ago I can't remember. No, 2.5 weeks ago. Yeah, 2.5 weeks ago. So on Tuesday, it'll be 3 weeks. Gosh, that's insane. Man, we live in the future and modern medical technology is amazing. Sidebar. Okay, so as a result of the breaking my arm, I had 4-hour surgery the same day. And then when I was finally released from the hospital, it was Thursday afternoon. That means I had 3 days and 2 nights to observe people in the hospital. I was surrounded by healthcare workers. I was surrounded by people getting care. I was actually in a shared room, which is an insane thing that the hospital I was in still does. But it sucked. It really sucked. And I wouldn't recommend any hospital who cares about the customer service aspects of their hospital do that because it was I just didn't sleep a wink either night because of my roommates who were delightful human beings, but had challenges in the evenings. And so I'm speaking to 95% of you when I say this. You are not paying near enough attention to how fit you are. You aren't. The most important thing in the world is your fitness, and you are ignoring it most days of the week, and you continue to ignore it at your peril. And I'm sorry if this is going to sound soapboxy. I'm sorry if you're rolling your eyes at me about this, but I have to tell you that you will, if you get to be 80 and you haven't spent time each day from your 40s onward focusing on how fit you are, how flexible you are, how healthy you are, how metabolically healthy you are, that will be one of your biggest regrets if you're smart enough to pay attention. So I had never stayed overnight in the hospital before. The closest I had ever come was an outpatient ankle reconstruction about 10 years ago. So it's like show up at 11, get discharged by 2 kind of thing. Um, so that's nothing, right? It's just a surgery. It's not being in the hospital. I, I started getting really serious about my fitness in 2019. So I had this drawn out lower back episode. It basically lasted from Thanksgiving of 2019 until I got an epidural steroid injection in my back 2 weeks before the world shut down for COVID in 2020. It was insane timing. And that lower back episode terrified me for the future. So at the time, my dad was still alive, and I was witnessing what it's like to be above the age of 80 and not have focused on strength training when you were in your 40s. And so basically, I was thinking to myself a lot, like, if this is how hard 42 is, this is in 2019, what will 80 be like, right? I can see into the future. I wasn't sleeping. I had all sorts of herniated disc, which turned into a whole bunch of things. And, I've always been lucky with my metabolic health for the most part genetically, but you can be strong and weak at the same time if you're not being intentional about it. And so since 2020, I basically was like, this is never going to happen again if I can help it. I got the epidural steroid injection. It created just a little bit of space. It reduced the inflammation, and I could do things again. And I thought to myself, it will be 100% my fault if I ever have to deal with that kind of situation again. And so since then, I have slowly accumulated a team of professionals to help me maximize my health span. So health span is the word used by Peter Attia and others to not just describe your lifespan, but how healthy you are across the course of your life. They call your marginal decade is the last decade of your life. Is your marginal decade full and rich, or are you spending it, much like my dad did, in and out of the hospitals? And I guess, it wasn't my dad's last decade, but the last 5 years, the last half decade, was that way. And so it actually started when, after the epidural steroid injection, I was asking my primary care physician, who can help me get stronger? And she recommended Tim, who I mentioned earlier from Restore Thrive, as a physical therapist who isn't a physical therapist, right? He's just going to help you figure this out. And so, so that's how it started. And so since then, I have a trainer that I meet with once a week, and my trainer, it's a different dude. He programs 3 strength training workouts each week. He kind of takes into consideration the whole of what I'm doing, playing basketball, et cetera, et cetera. And I work out with him once a week, and then I work out by myself twice a week. And after 2 years of working with him, 2 years of working with him after 3 years, 2 years of working with my physical therapist, getting stronger and stronger and working out by myself, now at 48 and I'm 6'3", 210 pounds, I got less than 20% body fat. I can deadlift 400 pounds. I can squat 350 pounds. I can bench press 220 pounds. And I play an hour. Well, not right now, but I did and will play an hour of intense competitive basketball twice a week, right? That's not going to win me any medals. I'm not going to be like the strongest man in the world competition, but it is great. It is a significant level of physical fitness, as both as it is relative to other people and also just in general. It's not, even if everyone in the United States was healthy, this would still be a pretty dang good amount of fitness. In fact, my physical therapist and I talk a lot about how I'm plenty strong enough, right? I can get stronger. And once you get into weightlifting, you do want to just get stronger because goals. But I don't need to get any stronger to be able to maximize my health span from a strength perspective. So that's interesting. So my physical therapist, right, I meet with him monthly, and he addresses any dings and dents that have happened during the training. Often in basketball, I get, things that hurt a little bit, whatever. And then also any weaknesses that might become blinking red lights in the future, because as you start training harder and harder, repetitive motion and things like that are how issues arise, right? So, my elbow will start hurting and be like, okay, that's a little bit of tendonitis probably because your forearm muscles are tight. Okay, so you need to do these kind of stretches for the next couple of weeks to loosen those muscles up and get rid of that pain in your elbow, right? All sorts of stuff like that. Any weaknesses that might become blinking red lights in the future, he addresses. And also, he's just kind of a great person to talk to about what it means, because he's my same age. This is very important. My trainer is in his late 20s, and that's different than being 48. And sometimes he didn't quite get it. But my physical therapist is 49, so he understands. And my nutritionist, also older than me, 54, I meet with him every week, and he makes sure that I am giving my body the fuel that it needs to grow and recover quickly. Because actually, when you work out as much as I do, which is how much you should be working out, recovery becomes really important. And you need to be drinking enough water, getting enough protein, getting enough carbs so that your body can rebuild. And look, I may be excessive, right? And I mean, I know that. Everyone's like, oh, geez, this guy. But all of this costs the same or less as some people's car payment each month, right? So it's not like we're talking about, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars each month. It's pretty dang easy, right? And it's really all about priorities. My trainer says that everyone should spend at least 5% of their income every year on proactive health and fitness. And that seems reasonable to me, right? You should be giving 10% of your income to charity, giving it away to help other people. Why wouldn't you spend 5% to help your future self? And I mean, this, when I break it down like this, because I would imagine that many of you are type A personalities, high achievers for the most part, or at least aspirational high achievers. My guess is that the demographic of this podcast would be older people who have achieved success. They feel competent and confident in their life and finances, etc. And then younger people who are aspirationally that, right? And so you're probably saving for retirement. And then I would say, if you balk at the amount of time and energy and money I'm spending on my fitness and saying that you should spend that same amount, are you saving for your retirement just so you can sit at home with your body broken, neglected, and useless? First of all, the idea of retirement is going to disappear because life is for living and we're moving out of the industrial age. And why I've always thought, it's funny, I've thought this since I was in college. It is totally stupid to work your whole life so that you can then stop working just at the time it's most difficult to enjoy the world, right? However, I plan on jogging through Central Park at 90 with my great-grandchildren or grandchildren or whatever, right? That's my plan. And I need to be doing work now so that I can ensure that. And so now I've just described a whole bunch of gratuitous narcissistic crap about me that I'm doing. Why am I saying that? Because even with all of that work, all of that preparation, the fact that before I broke my arm, I literally in any moment could have stopped and ran a marathon and survived it. I could have in any moment sprinted the 400-yard dash and then done a full day of work, right? Most people over the age of 35 don't ever sprint again, which is a separate conversation about, more granular fitness stuff, but that's okay. But so even with all of that, being in the hospital for 2 nights was difficult and exhausting. I was really, really astounded by the fact that when I got home from the hospital, walking over for a couple of days, walking from the couch to refill my water was like a chore. And so my hospital stay was made much easier by many different things, but the fact that I could, because of my core strength, very easily sit up in bed without using my arms. It was made easier by the fact, and this is too much information. This is TMI, but I'm going to tell you anyway because I think it's important to talk about uncomfortable things. My legs and my core were plenty strong enough that I could get out of the bed, of course, with my wife or a nurse next to me for the first 24 hours after surgery, because you're always a little shaky. Without them touching me, though, I could walk to the bathroom and I could slowly and safely squat to the toilet without any assistance. And frankly, if I needed to pause in the middle because something wasn't quite right, and if I continued, I was going to fall, I could just sit in a wall squat for 30 seconds without even worrying about it. Every single bit of this experience has been made easier for me and the people around me because I'm super fit. And my dad was in and out of the hospital a lot in his last 5 years of life, right? And if he had been as strong and as fit as I am at 48, and he wasn't, he worked out after he was diagnosed with diabetes and had lost a whole bunch of weight and stuff, right? He started working out. But if he had been this fit at 48, he would have, number one, been in the hospital much less. And number two, those trips to the hospital would have been much easier to recover from. After the age of 40, if you aren't laser focused on being healthy and fit, then when you are 80, you will wish you had been. I guarantee it. And I just, hopefully this isn't sounding preachy. Hopefully it's sounding encouraging and motivating, because you don't have a bigger priority than being fit. whether you know it or not. You might think there's a whole bunch more important things, but in fact, the most important thing is your strength and your metabolic health. Do you know what metabolic health is? It's just like your body's ability to turn food into energy in an efficient way, right? And not get totally overwhelmed by all of the trash that you're putting in your face. And so my goal now is to take absolutely as much strength as is possible into each new decade. That's my goal. And it's not hard if you want to get started. I mean, it seems overwhelming. I've just described a whole bunch of overwhelming stuff, but it's not that hard if you want to get started. I mean, you can just start by today. Try to balance on one foot while you put your shoe on, right? So stand on your left foot, put your right shoe on. Stand on your right foot, put your left shoe on. Get better at that. Do that every day. Balance is a hugely important thing for people as they age. And nutritionists are pretty easy to come by. And provided you get one who knows how to focus on protein, it isn't really rocket science. It's not insanely expensive. And once you get it figured out, it doesn't really change a whole bunch, right? So you can have someone help you figure out what you should eat, get yourself a tracking app, and then you can just start eating that and then check in with them every once in a while, right? And then also, to make it easier for you, studies have shown that you get a huge percentage of the benefit of strength training and exercise and paying attention to your metabolic fitness and nutrition just by doing some small amount of it regularly, right? You don't need to worry about squatting 100 pounds, 200 pounds, 300 pounds. What you need to start doing is doing 20 body weight squats 3 times a day. And then see the rewards and then start doing more. And then pretty soon you'll be the kind of person who has workout clothes, who works out regularly, right? You just got to take the incremental step. Don't let the great be the enemy of the good. What that means is don't let the picture in your mind of perfection keep you from starting imperfectly. You don't have to be David Goggins. If you know who David Goggins is, you know what I mean. If you don't, go Google him. He's insane. You don't have to be David Goggins to make eventually being an 80-year-old much easier on yourself and the people you love. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this. You get to choose. Things are hard. Life is hard. Stuff is hard. You get to choose which hard thing you prefer. You don't get to choose for things to be easy. Over time, you get to choose things to be easy right now. You can eat the trash food right now. That's easy. But you don't get to eat the trash food right now and not have the pain later, right? You get to choose which hard thing you prefer. Exercise now, that's a hard thing. Do you prefer that? Or do you prefer not to be able to walk to the bathroom by yourself later? There are a whole bunch of things outside of our control. Sometimes you're going to break your arm and end up in the hospital. You cannot keep yourself from all uncomfortable things, but you can prepare yourself to tolerate them better. So just choose wisely. Choose the hard thing you prefer. Okay, that is it for this week. I really, 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 really appreciate you. If you like this podcast, I should have mentioned this earlier, subscribe to it, rate it, review it, send it to a friend. Oh gosh, the reward for reading this email this week, because I put a link at the end of each email and the beginning of each email too, is this song, Hang in There, and it's by Stephen J. Wilson. And I think I just said in the email, I just saw this in the transcript, I want to mention it. Art like this, like that song, helps me feel my feelings. And that feeling your feelings is as important as your fitness, right? Because, the fullness of it is being human. It's not just one thing or the other. But anyway, this Stephen J. Wilson's dad's last words to him on the phone as he was driving to his deathbed were, "It's going to be okay, buddy." And that just gets me every time. It's going to be okay, buddy. A dad saying that to a 48-year-old man. And it is going to be okay. It's not going to be the same, but it's going to be okay. So if you want to listen to that song, you can click the link in the email. I hope you got something out of this. I hope, gosh dang it, if one of you is like, you know what, you're right, I should pay attention to my fitness, that'll change your entire life. And that will have been worth making every single podcast that I have ever made, which is almost over 100 at this point. And so that's a significant amount of work just to change one person's trajectory, but it's worth it. And I hope it's you. Okay, dad joke of the week. Where was King David's temple located? Where was King David's temple located? Duh, behind his ear. All right, have a great week. Oh no, okay. So sorry, my buddy John G, who proofs this email. I'm going to do this from memory. Sent me this little league. This coach was coaching his team in some little league World Series final game or something, and they were doing terribly. And so he had to go out and talk to the pitcher just because, shake things up a little bit. And so he walks out to the mound. This is a true story. There's a video online. You can see it. He walks out to the mound, for a serious discussion with the pitcher, like, all right, man, you just loaded the bases, blah, 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 whatever. But he didn't say any of that. He walks up and he says, did you know that a koala bear is not a mammal, that it's a marsupial? And they're like, what? No. And he's like, do you know why a bear is not a marsupial? Or no, wait, why a koala bear is not, I'm picturing this. Well, do you know why a koala bear is not a mammal? Because he doesn't have the qualifications. And then he just walked away from the mound. He said that, the coach said that, and just walked away from the mound, just lightening the mood and reminding everyone that this is just for fun. So anyway, there's 2 dad jokes this week for you. Have a great week. I hope you enjoy it. Make sure you work out this week. It doesn't matter what. Go for a walk. Do 100 push-ups in a day, or 100 bodyweight squats over the course of the day. Do something. Do something to make it easier for your kids or your loved ones to take care of you when you are old and infirm, and then do it again tomorrow. Have a great week.